U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived in Paris, where he is expected to meet French President Emmanuel Macron. And the pair will be joined by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to discuss the war in Ukraine, along with representatives from Kyiv. The talks are the highest level engagement between Europe and the U.S. since February. And we have our correspondent Nick Connolly in the Ukrainian capital with the very latest. Nick, what are the expectations in Kyiv from this meeting between U.S. and European diplomats?
I think, Claire, the expectations are pretty minimal. Obviously, in the kind of Trump world that everyone is living in right now, you don't undersell. Everything has to be important and significant. So there is a lot of kind of positive talk from the Ukrainian delegation. But realistically, the most important thing in all this is the fact that it is even happening, that we have the US administration engaging with Europe and not just talking with Moscow over Europe's and Ukraine's head. But I think there's little expectation that there's going to be some kind of concrete outcome out of all of this. It's more about Witkoff telling everyone else what he discussed with Putin recently. And I think the bigger picture is there's a real sense here in Ukraine that Donald Trump is losing interest, that he has found out that ending the war in 24 hours or a month or all his different claims is not going to be realistic, and that he's now looking for someone to blame. And we've seen him lashing out in recent days, not only against Biden, but against Zelensky for, as he says, letting this war happen. So there isn't a huge expectation, I think, from a European kind of optics perspective. It's obviously good that you've got France, Germany and the UK there, and I think the Ukrainians are hoping that those European countries are now going to take responsibility for supporting Ukraine and coming to some kind of arrangement that provides guarantees for Ukraine.
Yeah, and from the European perspective, what exactly do you think those European countries will be hoping to see from the White House in this situation?
Well, we've had lots of briefings, unnamed sources saying that it's time for the Trump administration to get tough on Russia, that all the kind of embracing of Putin, all the kind of warm words we've been having from Trump is not working, that Putin sees this as weakness and has not given anything in return. We've obviously seen lots of criticism recently over the fact that Russia has not had any further tariffs put on it like the rest of the world. Obviously, Russia is already under sanctions, but that somehow Russia gets off in a way that Ukraine, let alone America's NATO allies, don't. So there is a real hope for that. Whether or not that's realistic is a different question. Certainly, Steve Witkoff is someone that is seen with a lot of skepticism here in Ukraine. There was that interview recently he gave to Tucker Carlson in which he basically was gushing about his interactions with the Russians, about a portrait that Putin had commissioned of Trump, and barely was able to say anything about Ukraine, couldn't even name the regions of Ukraine that Russia has annexed. So there is a lot of worry there, and hope that Marco Rubio, who's seen as a bit closer to the kind of old school Republican positions, will be taking more initiative, and that Steve Witkoff will comparatively playing less of a role.
Thank you so much. As always, that is our correspondent, Nick Connolly in Kyiv.